So today I wanted to talk about something that irks me literally every time I see someone on the internet bring it up, and it happens often. It's that Nintendo purposely creates artificial demand for their products by not releasing enough of them to the public to drive up demand and keep that sold out status that a lot of companies like to covet because it means there's a lot of demand for their product. In fact, having more demand than you're willing to fill is usually good for a company because it means that they're selling out of everything they can possibly make. But the general consensus with Nintendo is that they do this on purpose. And this started back with the Wii. There was a lot of people that were saying that Nintendo was probably shortchanging Wii, creation in order to drive up interest to keep that sold out status. And there's a lot of things that don't really make sense for that being the case. As an example, the Wii ended up being Nintendo's best-selling home console of all time, the best-selling launch of a home console at that time until Switch. And it's interesting looking back at that because they were coming off a generation where they sold 23 million units, and the generation before they sold 30-something million units. So Nintendo had really no realistic expectation to make that many Wiis for launch and beyond. So honestly, the idea of artificial demand by purposely shortchanging the amount of units you release to market with the Wii didn't really make a lot of logical sense. In fact, if you look at the sales of the Wii, it was incredible. I mean, it was moving 20 million plus units per year at one point. You can't tell me that that's all driven by artificial demand. That sounds more like a company made as many of those damn things as they could and they sold every single one of them. And that was pretty much the case for 2 straight years. So I don't buy that. Now, Nintendo has done, and the reason that this still persists to this day, is they have a consistent issue with failing to meet demand. It happened with Amiibo. It still happens with Amiibo today. How many of you did not pre-order or day one buy Breath of the Wild Amiibo and are still waiting for them to be restocked? I mean, come on. All of you are waiting. I've been waiting, and I have them all just because I want to share to people when they're restocked, and it's just not happening. The NES Classic obviously was wildly understocked. The SNES Classic is probably going to be understocked as well, even as they've promised there will be more units for the SNES Classic than there was for the NES Classic. And we obviously know the situation with the Switch right now. It keeps selling out. So the ongoing theory is that Nintendo is shortchanging their products to keep demand really, really high and create a scarcity issue. And the thing is, that only really works in a market where Nintendo wants to mark up their systems, right? Nintendo's not out there to make scalpers money. They're not, oh, we're going to purposely not make enough Amiibo for launch and shortchange our fans so that the scalpers could buy it and charge twice as much on eBay. No, normally if you're going to shortchange something, it is so you can raise the price of your product to satiate that demand and maybe even lessen it a bit, but make more money per unit that you sell. Essentially, if you can't make enough for how many people want the product in the first place, you might as well sell the products you can get out there for more money. That's not what Nintendo does. So I think Nintendo does have a major manufacturing issue. Not just with the shortchanging on parts for the Switch, which I think is real, especially based on some words from Tatsumi Kimishima. It definitely sounds like it is outside of Nintendo's control on how many Switch units they can get out right now. But just in general, I think Nintendo has real issues, especially here in the United States, with understanding demand for their products. They massively, there's so many Amiibo that you can order in from Japan right now that are not available in the United States because they overestimated how many people want it in Japan and underestimated how many people want it in the United States. They did it with the NES Classic Edition, and some of this really falls on the back of Reggie Fils-Aimé, Bill Trinan, and the rest of the people at Nintendo who have the right to make the decision on what the product demand is going to be. Because Nintendo of America is Nintendo's #1 market. They make the most money from Nintendo of America's market in North America. So in general, Nintendo is going to favor and serve as much product to that area as the executives and the people in charge, tell them that they need. It's very rare for Nintendo America to not get priority in a stock situation. But I wonder if the folks at Nintendo of America are just simply not that great at projections. I bring this up because I think Amiibo was kind of like the Wii. It's hard to project how popular Amiibo was going to be at launch, but was it really that popular to know that, now that we know how popular Amiibo are, that Breath of the Wild Amiibo were going to be extremely popular? I don't think that was hard to project, and the fact that there wasn't enough of those at launch, and there still isn't enough of those to this day, is a problem. Nintendo of America obviously massively underestimated how popular the NES Classic Edition was going to be. And maybe they did fix it with the Super Nintendo Classic Edition, and we're not going to have to worry about it. But it's still a situation, at least in my mind, where I can't fathom a logical reason for Nintendo to continually shortchange the supply chain for these products. I mean, if you look at the products that they're having issues keeping in stock, they are products that are selling out at rates that are insane. And Nintendo is going to want to keep selling the products. Like, they're going to want as many Switches out there. They're going to want as many Wiis out there. They're going to want as many Amiibo out there. They're going to want these out there in plentiful supply. But Nintendo has an issue internally that hasn't been solved for years. And I don't know if it's going to take a massive management change. I'm not sure what it is, but Nintendo does have an issue making enough products or recognizing when demand hits, even if, say, you were not prepared for the demand at Switch at launch, as an example, and they were able to make more of them faster. They could easily shortchange other countries to catch up one country and then come back to that country later. Nintendo makes a lot of dumb decisions. Let's put it that way. Nintendo is not good with supply and demand. But I think it's just through sheer stupidity. I honestly don't think there's a rhyme or reason strategy to this, because it's not like, oh my gosh, it's working. Like, Nintendo is purposely shortchanging because it works. It works. Look, they shortchanged the Wii, and look, it worked. They shortchanged Amiibos, and look at the demand for Amiibos. I'm like, not really. No. It's not really working. They're just losing out on sales and alienating consumers, especially the more and more it keeps happening. I know plenty of people who are extremely annoyed they can't get their hands on Switch, and I wouldn't be surprised if they end up not buying the Switch at all because of the stock situation. Same with Amiibo, same with a lot of other things. Like, I know plenty of my friends who have given up on getting the Breath of the Wild Amiibo, even when they do come in stock. They're not looking for the product anymore. Nintendo is losing consumers if they were doing it on purpose. I don't think Nintendo's doing it on purpose. I think it's just a long-standing incompetence and misunderstanding of the market in North America specifically. And I'm hoping Reggie, I like Reggie Fils-Aimé as a presenter. I worry about maybe his business acumen in making these decisions on what the demand for these products is going to be. Because it's almost like when the late Satoru Iwata was in charge and he kept apologizing for game droughts and promising they weren't going to happen anymore. Well, Nintendo of America keeps saying that they misprojected this, or they didn't anticipate this, or they didn't anticipate demand for NES Classic Edition. Well, at one point, when are you going to anticipate correctly? It has to happen. It has to happen at some point. And this isn't just a problem necessarily in Nintendo America. I remember infamously Spirit Tracks was overprojected for sales in Japan, and they made so many copies available in Japan that literally within 2 weeks they were discounted 50% off and in discount bins in the store. So even Nintendo of Japan has every now and then really misprojected. But see, they misprojected where they made too many units. When was the last time something was misprojected for Nintendo in the United States that provided too many units? I can't even remember an instance of this. So I do think we need to start tearing down the walls, however, around this idea that Nintendo is doing this all on purpose. Nintendo's not leaving money on the table on purpose, folks. It's just not happening. And they aren't being cautious. You can maybe argue they were cautious at launch, but now they're at a point where we understand what demand is. There's no point to be cautious. They just can't keep up. when, for whatever reason it is, money, factory reasons, maybe there was strikes, maybe Nintendo is sitting behind other bigger companies like Apple, fighting for parts, or maybe at the end of the day Nintendo is just that incompetent, and it sucks thinking that they might be, but I honestly think it makes a hell of a lot more sense than Nintendo purposely leaving money on the table. Anyways, this is Nathaniel Rufflegans from Nintendo Prime. If you like this video, you know what to do. If you dislike this video, hit that dislike button. Obviously, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.